I'll give you this when we hit an hour.
Okay.
I don't know,
Sounds
but
good.
keep track of where we're at. But
Okay.
cool. Chris, you rolling?
Which finger will you do if we hit an hour 20?
You might get a different one.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to the Average Pastor podcast. And we're back. We're back. We've had some adventures since we've been gone. We have a lot to get caught up on and talk about, process. It's going to be a good time. We're out at the fire porch, Jeff's little fire porch here, and we got the magnolias in bloom.
I know. I got 2 different variety of magnolia, both of which are just bursting with color right now, and even scent and stuff.
Yeah,
pretty special tree, you know.
Yeah,
so,
we get the soundtrack of the birds chirping in the background.
They're liking it.
So yeah, Jake, how are you doing today?
Doing well.
Are you?
Doing well.
Well, good.
Wait, you should tell them about your magnolia. Your new one.
Oh, well, yeah, we're in the process of moving. And the people we are buying the house from, a lady that's a friend, was told that she has the largest magnolia tree in the state of Iowa in there. It's a...
On your... You're now the steward.
I mean, you could tell me
anything
about the tree. I'm like, that's awesome. That's great. But I don't know.
It's like Gondor. You got to treasure that thing, man.
So what is the tree of
Just
Gondor?
the white
tree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so do you have to do anything? You just, I mean, do you?
I'll call Jeff. Jeff, what do you do with your magnolia trees?
Like, because aren't they?
They're not
tough.
They're tough to grow in this, or for them to thrive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This isn't their native land. It's pretty north, so pretty cold for them. So like last year, for instance, we hardly had any flowers. I mean, I think you could count on one hand.
Yeah, with that late frost.
Yeah. Sometimes it can happen in the fall or the spring. Either way, to damage them from really doing what they're doing right now. But so normally you think of these in the southern part of the United States, maybe especially Missouri on down. But if you can get them, if they find a sweet spot and start flourishing, they're great. They're beautiful trees. You know, they're just
cool,
a little bit finicky.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got so much to catch up on. I'm still jet lagged right now. I got here last night. I've got that dizzy, almost like car sick feeling a little bit.
I hate that feeling.
Yeah. So we'll see how this goes. So
if you nod off, we'll just kind of poke you a little bit.
I'm more worried about the filter than the fatigue.
Oh man, then I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, this was a great litmus test for the podcast. It's like, what level of appropriate, what I was thinking is, what's an example of something that we could talk about here that probably wouldn't be the best place for in a sermon illustration?
Right.
And here's the question. Is that even a thing? Is that a legitimate thing? Like, how do you think differently about what you say on the podcast versus what you would say in preaching?
I don't know where this is going. Like, is this episode going to have a parental warning on it, or? I mean, there's some things like, no matter where you are, you conduct yourself with,
integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then there's just an awareness of, on a Sunday morning, there's a variety of ages in the room.
There's a variety of ages listening. Maybe
are
more,
there? Are there though?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of kids listening to this podcast. Well, okay, so here's. I just got back from Spain, and we get to the. I mean, beautiful. So the backstory. I mean, just some context. We is one of our elders, Dave Hicks, Shane Kelly.
Yep.
On staff at Veritas, and my son and I, Makai, and myself joined Austin Claver, who's going to be, he and his wife Ellie are moving to San Sebastian, Spain, and that in August. So we went with him to just vision trip, see the city, just to, just experience it, and it was just everything and more. I'm just bursting with stories.
I don't know if I want to hear.
This one, I know.
I've got FOMO is already
and Jeff,
at an exaggerated level.
Many times on the trip, we were like, Jeff should be here. And there's times where we sat down to eat, and I'm like, there were points I'm like, we need the what would Jeff Dodge do bracelet. The WWJDD is, because I know you, one of the things I've learned from you is whether we're in Zambia eating Nshima, just, corn mush, and that's it.
Yeah.
Or whether we're, you just got back from Greece and Turkey, but you enjoy all of life on both spectrums. And so times that we sat down and just saying, it's okay that we're enjoying a great meal in a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just, I had to, and bring that up, But here's, okay, so that's the context of why I was in Spain. So we get to we go to the beach. Our place is like really close. Our Airbnb, just 2 blocks from the beach.
Wow.
And so I could see it out my window, and as we walked down there. So we're going on a walk, and I'm just kind of filming, like, hey, it's for, just getting shots.
And when you say beach, by the way, you're on the Atlantic Ocean, not the Mediterranean.
The north coast. Yep.
Of,
and it right borders France right there. Yeah. Right on the, throw a rock and hit, France. Yep. And so anyway, we just like that. And I'm like, oh, what's that? That's a lot of skin walking over there.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
It's legally a nude beach.
No.
In the middle of, this particular beach, you can be nude there. I'm just saying,
word.
I don't.
Hey, Mackay.
Hey, son. We were even in a prayer circle because we were praying. And, my son's back is to but it's not like, no, it's a normal beach. Well,
it's not a normal beach. Where are we going to attend? There's sand and ocean. It is a beach.
Can I just say, I've been to a lot of beaches. That is not normal.
Aside from this, okay.
This was the primer, right. Jake. If you were wondering where this was going, this
now
is where it was going.
So, okay. Why is it the only people that feel comfortable being naked are old?
It's like old. The two places are nude beaches and YMCA locker rooms. You always get that one old guy that's just going to air dry for like a half hour and try to talk to you.
Yeah, 100% chance you're going to encounter that guy at the YMCA. Yeah. Or I guess, or San Sebastian, Spain.
Yes. So what is it? What is it? These guys, this guy, and I have to say, in San Sebastian, everyone is in great shape. I didn't see one overweight person in the city, except for this one. What do you do with that? What do you do with that?
Oh, you throw up in your mouth, I think. And, that's what I just did.
So, anyway, that happened. And
there wasn't a lot of that in Turkey. Can I just say that's a very different environment? Maybe more burqas, but not a lot of nude beaches.
So, Mark, are you saying you're not going to share this story on Sunday during your message? Is this an example of the?
This story is the litmus test.
He might.
I can see it.
You can see it. Yeah. Well, we're very sensitive to one. Talking about weight.
Yes.
That's a sensitive topic, especially in America. And even processing that, just with Spain and, seeing, and I don't know all the reasons, like, cause it didn't make it, I don't know, like they walk more. Mm-hmm. Do they, I'd be curious in Turkey and Greece, but the diet, we're eating croissants or like croissant rolls and a lot of bread, a lot of carbs, a lot of, So I was
But
curious
fresh.
why. Yes, it was all fresh.
That's
yes.
the thing. Yeah, coming back from Turkey and Greece, also that very different cuisine. I'm imagining than further Western Europe,
Fresh
like
fruits
Spain.
and vegetables.
But everything was
grain.
fresh.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
being world travelers, is there something true to the phrase American-sized portions?
Yes,
Is like
yeah.
you just
Oh yeah. Yes.
for sure.
In fact, we got this. One of the restaurants we went to on the last night, they're like, well, this portion here would be for like 3 people.
And Mackay's ordering 2.
Yeah, we got it, and I was like, I mean, that would be it was here it'd be like a generous size for one person.
Well, when you said there's like no out of shape people there, I immediately thought like, well, that would be awkward for me to go. So, true story. We were in China, in I think Macau, and I got kicked out of a China shop. Like it was like trinkets. It was like probably the size of this room and real small aisles. I had a backpack on. I'm like, oh, let's go there and look. And then the lady's like, no.
you can't
You're
come
too
in
big.
here.
You're too big. Get out. You'll break things. I had like, oh, I'm getting kicked out of this store for being too large. It was one of the higher moments in my life.
But Jake, I mean, it was. But to be
running
fair,
back
it
to
was
mine.
you plus the backpack.
That's what I tell myself. Yeah. Should I leave my bag out? No. It's the backpack. That's what it is.
No, the whole thing is not welcome. Just
Well, what's funny is at one of the meals that we had, one of our students that was along with us, it was a study tour that I was doing, and so a bunch of students with us, and it was just a caprese salad. So it's just tomatoes, mozzarella, basil, and olive oil drizzled all over it. And one of the guys was like, I've never seen anything like that. If we had salad like this back home, I would eat salad. I'm like,
The Olive Garden.
we have every one of these ingredients at Fairway. This is not exotic.
The reason I eat so bad is because these ingredients don't exist.
I've never seen anything like it. I seriously was like, dude, I can change your life right now. This is all back at Fairway.
But Jake, the problem is you're like, oh yeah, at Olive Garden. That's the irony. Are there all? And it's not a garden. It's like prepackaged. They pull it out of a.
I mean, there's
That's like-
olives in it.
There is. That's
Lettuce
true.
in it.
There are
It's in the title.
Jeff, do you have any restaurants you like less than Olive Garden?
e-
We ate there one time, and I looked around. I was just like, and it was filled with people, Americans, and American-sized portions. But I looked around, and I'm like, Letha, I don't think anyone here looks happy. They as they were eating their
that's
food,
sad.
they just looked like they weren't enjoying it. But
Yeah, that is kind of
Anyway.
sad.
So
Oh, we're gonna get comments. People love Olive Garden.
they do love Olive Garden. I'm always shocked. I'm always shocked by it.
What about Olive Garden?
But
We're
Jake,
getting canceled right
Oh,
now.
What's that Nate Bargatze bit of like people have these mom and pop restaurants? It's like, no, I want to see the proven success. Like, you everywhere before I trust your food. Like,
so it's everywhere. That's
You must be good at what you do. Let's
Yeah.
go there.
well.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
Although last time, Olive Garden's a touchy subject in our household because last year it was Johnny's birthday, and we're like, "Where do you want to go? Anywhere." She goes, "Let's go to Olive Garden." That's our family. So, and they keep giving me crap because I was like, "Nah." And then we went to Texas Roadhouse for her birthday. So I was giving her an opportunity to pick the restaurant, hoping she would pick where I wanted to go.
All right.
Way to take the high road on that, Jake.
I let out in servant leadership of, now let's go somewhere else.
Happy birthday.
So yeah, the joke is Dad's selfish. That's
That's the punchline there.
they'll never let me forget that.
Yeah. Well, we had some great experiences in Spain. that story aside. And it actually, this was such a cool thing we got to experience on Sunday. So we had a nightmare travel. Oh my word.
You did.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like delays and
Flight canceled from Cedar Rapids. We hop in a rental car, scream over to O'Hare in Chicago, get there. Oh, it's delayed. We wait 4 hours, 5 hours, whatever. Then we get on the plane. We're like, sweet, on the plane to Madrid, sit on the plane on the tarmac for 4 hours.
Oh.
And then they're like, yeah, flight's canceled. The crew has been working they'll have had too many hours by the time we get to Madrid. So we got to unload the plane.
Yeah.
And,
do you like that
maddening.
rule as a traveler? Like, I want my pilot well rested. Or are you kind of like, nobody comes into my job and be like, hey.
Well, I don't like I don't like the
Oh, you wish they had
delays.
You're going to stop mid-sermon. I'm already reached now.
Yeah, but I don't want a pilot falling asleep on the job.
That's true.
There's safer place for you to fall asleep in the middle of your message. Inconsequential. If there's a pilot falling asleep, that's danger. So yeah, I'd appreciate if our pilots were well rested.
oh man. So
Get a Red Bull and let's go.
So there's all that. Anyway, we get there. It was already going to be a short trip. Then so we get there a day later. My son and I get sick, and we are. I mean, that's like fetal position, just shivering, aches, chills, just all the whole thing. And then, but we prayed, and I feel like God helped us, healed us. But we were able to go. Here's the story. We go to church on Sunday, and just so cool. That's to me where it was worth the whole trip. It's one thing to walk the streets and see a place and see people, but when you experience the church in that place, and they were singing some songs that we sing in Spanish. So that was really cool to be able to enter in a little bit into worship, and then, and just seeing the people. But then that night they had baptisms.
Wow.
And it was so special.
Wow.
That we were there for that.
Yeah.
And so there we were on the beach, that it was cool. Even the timing that, gentleman that was out in all his glory, he
was not there. He didn't come to church that night.
Like right before, he kind of went away.
Nice.
But before baptisms. So
I remember this in Zambia too, but isn't it cool when you're a part of a church service in another country and you recognize the tune? Like you don't know the words. It's like, I know what song they're singing. I did a funeral for a Congolese family Friday, and they started singing, just kind of broke into song. It's like, Blessed Assurance. Like I know this looked like, you just know the tune, and
that's
it's
sweet.
Just a bond of that was pretty cool.
You did this
Can I sing? No.
What happened? The Congolese man in your church?
They lost a baby.
Jake.
It was a small service, but it's just a sweet moment. Strong believing family.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I feel like in our churches, there are a lot of young people. Maybe we don't do as many funerals. I mean, in our, we've done, each of us have done, funerals, but do you do many funerals? Do you feel like...
stage of life in a church, we don't have as many, but over the course of the years, we've done a lot of funerals. I'd prefer to do a funeral than a wedding. Just like you have a captive audience, you kind of are able to minister to a family in a really I don't want to say like a wedding's not meaningful, but there's an aspect of a wedding like you're not going to remember anything I say. But at a funeral, you got a captive audience. We've had a lot of. I say a lot. I think of a handful of people that have started coming to Veritas because their first experience was they came to a funeral at Veritas.
Wow.
It's a great opportunity to minister to people.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to take a hard left turn.
No,
I was just thinking of the
real.
singing in a different language.
Yeah, that's cool. It is just cool hearing the song in in a different language, but it's the same tune. There's something that in the melody that it binds you together with them. But yeah, Spain, I mean, there's so much to process. I have to tell you this really cool story that just happened. It's the most recent story. It happened at the end of the trip. So I'm on the plane, just kind of feeling sick. It's about a 8.5 hour flight back to Chicago, Madrid to Chicago. And I'm still feeling this like pretty sick, just so tired, where you're just so tired, your eyes hurt and you're, whatever. So I'm just like trying to pull it together to make it through this 8-hour flight. And they, about an hour in, I'm like, I'm going to watch the Bob Dylan movie.
Oh yeah.
And so I turned it on and they bring out the food and I hadn't really I was sitting next to this young woman in her early 30s, and I was just so focused on, I was not feeling well and whatever, but they served the food and I look over, I'm like, hey, I'm Mark. And she smiles and starts talking. And my son was there too. And so the three of us, and sometimes I'm talking to her, or sometimes my son's, but we talked the rest of the time.
Oh, wow.
And it was the gospel. It was
no way.
It was such a divine appointment. And at one point, so we started off and the conversation began with just what do you do? And I said, it pretty quickly, well, I'm a pastor. And she's like, who is God?
Wow.
And about 6 hours later, I'm like, Makai, my son, he's like, Dad, we need to pray for her. So I was like, can we pray for you? And she's like, yeah, please. How do I pray? And I was like, I just put my arm on her shoulder. I'm like, I'm just going to pray and you can just, and she holds out her hands.
Oh my word. How cool.
And just, because there was one of those Jesus.
Yeah.
It was like, if you're, we had talked about, so, I mean, so much had happened in that time that went from, we start the conversation and it's, it was, she's from Spain and I think articulated a worldview that would be very European, very secular, but had some background, with religion a little bit, maybe not a lot, but enough to know what the church was. Well, her idea of even what the church was is you kind of have to deconstruct that a little bit to get to Jesus. And but at one point she asked and trying to what points do you hit on, because you covered so much, but it started as kind of more apologetics kind of conversation about moral. She's a lawyer, so talking about the moral law and right and wrong, and her kind of believing more of the social contract theory. Humans just gonna come up with these rules to get along, and it's more at that intellectual apologetics level. But then I just began asking her about her life, and that's where it just went immediately. It went so deep, and she shared her whole story and tears, and I said, "Can I have you read a story from the Bible?" And I had my phone, and I was scrolling through the books and just showing her Genesis, and these are Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. These are the Gospels, and I don't think she had ever really seen those before. And I went to John 4, the woman at the well, and I just had her read. I was like, here, you can read it. And she's like, can you read it? I'm like, out loud, yeah. And so we just sat there in our row and we read through John 4, and we talked about how, I said, why did God create the world? Why did God put us here? And I said, because I believe that God he put us here to receive, and that it's like a fountain, this unending fountain of goodness. Just imagine goodness and love, and you were born with a cup, an empty cup, and God says, I'm the fountain. And instead of putting it under the waterfall of God, you go dig your own well. And you've been digging a lot of wells. And throughout the conversation, she kept coming back to her empty cup. And I was just like, so we read through John 4 and just read the story. And I'm like, Jesus is the expression. He is God. He's here. And she broke out she has a journal where she just writes her thoughts. And I'm like, can you just take one page of your journal and just start it off, Jesus.
Mark.
This whole time you've been just talking to yourself. But what if there's someone else there and he's here? And she's like, how do you hear from Jesus? And so Makai jumped in and he read Psalm 139 to her. And she got out her phone and she just took a picture. She's like, can I take a picture of this? Because she had just shared, I have trouble sleeping and I have so many thoughts. And that's like a line of the Psalm.
It's incredible.
And it was like God was going ahead. And then I said, well, for me, when I open my Bible, God opens his mouth. And I read the Bible and I try to listen. And I was like, well, I wonder what I read today. Because here's what I did. And I pulled my Bible app out and I just tapped on it. And I went to the reading for that day. So this was yesterday, April 7th. And so I just showed her my thing. And I said, well, let's see what I wrote, today. So I clicked on it and I said Acts 1 and scrolled down. I was like, oh, I highlighted verse 8 there. And so I said, oh, what else happened? And then we do a little journal article that we write and I just kind of share. And I said, oh, let me read you mine. And she's like looking at it, reading it with, and I said, here it is. I'm sitting on the balcony overlooking the city streets of San Sebastian. I've just experienced this verse these last few days here. Jesus has sent us to the ends of the earth filled with power and good news. Jesus, here am I. Send me. And I said, he sent me right here next to you.
Wow.
To tell you that Jesus is alive and he wants to he wants to save you, but he loves you. He knows you. And it was one of the most dramatic gospel conversations that I've ever had in my life. And we can so easily just, Europe, it's this and that. But she was so precious. Like she was so, just her heart was so soft and ready and seeking. And what started off as could be a really tough conversation. We're obviously worlds apart on, worldview.
Mark, that's awesome. I'm just baffled that you're holding that and you decided to lead out with the fat naked man. It's like you're kind of holding a more amazing story.
Yeah, here's this treasure. We're all on the edge of our seats. Then what happened?
She says, she's like, I told her the website and where to find sermons. She's like, are you going to use me in one of your sermons? I was like, oh, totally. I totally am. And I hope she's listening now. And I just, because that was such a, you see this, this beautiful person that God has made that is known and loved. And you hear the story. And I said, I'm like, I feel like when, she shared I was like, I feel like I was in a book, just like a gripping drama. And I'm hearing it and she's like traveled to 70 countries. She goes all over the world and she, and has had all these experiences and from, Buddhist stuff to she went to New York and just went to visited a gospel church in Harlem, because she wanted to just see an experience. She's been to all like Tibet or just different places on the world. And I'm like, have you ever met someone like me that told you this story about the gospel? First time she'd ever heard it. Maybe she started to say about a guy somewhere that, but some of these different, there's just so much to the story that was so. I was on the edge of my seat as I was listening to her talk, and so and then she toward the end, there's like probably an hour before we landed, and we kind of went our own ways, and she got out her journal and she's like, well, I've got homework to do.
Wow.
And started writing, and I just I think that trip was a reminder why we have to get on a plane as pastors and go overseas and remember that it's too small a thing to just go into build our little kingdom mode, or just be focused here, or even on the good things. It's like that Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the ends of the earth. Like I think that we need all those.
Yes,
we need to focus here. And focus on our city, our county, our state, our, the nation, but the world. And there was, I'm so just in awe of the divine. It's like Jesus was so clear and obvious that he was sitting in the row with us. And special time.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
It actually makes me think of, very different reason for going. I was on a study tour as opposed to scouting out a mission or whatever. But our people at times were getting disillusioned because, in these tours, you're hearing about these kingdoms, these massive kingdoms and the eras, Well, when you get to the Christian era, once Constantine makes Christianity the national, empire-wide religion, the Roman Empire. Well, then all these idol temples become places of worship, and now Christians can, Well, along with that is every kind of vandalism of true Christianity that comes along with seizing power, and all of a sudden politics and religion get united, and it becomes just and so it can be disillusioning. You know what I mean? Like, this is our story. This is the Christians. And I'm like, oh, no, actually, that isn't the Christian story. The Christian story isn't about massive Hagia Sophia and empires. And no, actually, genuine Christians were rarely even allowed in to those massive places of worship, even in their heyday. There were places where the emperor went and the elitists went and all that. No, where you found the reason that in Iowa in 2025, the gospel is still going strong is stories like you just gave right there. I said it's neighbors sharing the life-giving gospel with their neighbors and friends, and they don't get the history books. Nobody's writing the history books because they're never seizing the ring of power. They never get in these, or rarely get in places of influence and elitism. But here we are. Testimonies that gospel was running underneath all the headlines.
That's so much of what I had to help her understand is that church that you associate with Christianity is not the church of God. I was like, do you know who Jesus was most angry with when he walked this earth? It was those people.
Yes.
You have to understand that about the Jesus way is your, like, when you think, and she told me her experience at church, and it's, don't don't do this, do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And by the end, I was like, I said her name and I was like, so now that you understand grace, she goes, if I were to come to your church, what are your rules? What do I have to do? Mm-hmm. And I was like, nothing. Just hold up your cup and just let God. You don't interact with God by achieving a place or earning a place. That's what you saw it as a rung, a ladder to heaven, and do this, don't do this, do this, and you're climbing your way. And I'm like, it was never meant to be a ladder. It's a mirror, and it's showing you who you are. And we talked about sin and repentance and forgiveness and receiving and grace, and she's like, yeah, but what are the rules? Like, what do you? And I'm like, there are rules. I'm overselling this, right? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, but here's how it is. It's not, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. I was like, I said her name. And I put my arm on her shoulder. I'm like, oh, my child, don't do this, or you'll hurt yourself. Mm-hmm. And that is a much different way of understanding God's heart and his law and his love. It's an expression of his love. And I just, we talked about the kind of the role of the law. It's not, you don't use the law to earn, and to justify yourself. Mm-hmm. That's what these religious people were doing, just like your experience of it. They're using the law to expose their righteousness rather than anyway. So that's
dude.
Yeah. There's a lot there.
I think one of the most meaningful times of worship, we had a couple really, but one of them, I believe it was Sardis, and I'm going to be a little embarrassed if I got that wrong because I was leading this trip. But there's this massive temple, just these Greek columns. I mean, it's phenomenal in Turkey. And when the Christians take it over, they actually flip to where the altar is where the entryway is going to be. And they have this way of flipping things. But so all that is also evident in the archaeology and restoration. But outside and off one corner, there's this little building. Think of it almost like a lean-to or something, like a little addition. And they can tell by the scratchings on the floor and in the walls that this is where the genuine Christians would meet. And so we got in our little group, could just fit inside this little thing by this just monstrous temple with these just pillars. And you can imagine, in its day, the heyday. And we began to sing and to worship and to just once again remind ourselves, this is what God's church was doing. Whatever was going on in that literally adjacent in this massive, opulent place. This is the gospel. This is where God's people met. And then they would go from here and they'd go find the lepers. They'd find the orphans. They'd find, the diseased, the needy. That's what Christians were doing in the shadow of these empire and, massive.
So let me ask you this about church history, you and Jake. Do you guys think that a lot of the big buildings that have now become just an edifice or just an empty tomb, basically, of what the church once was, did they all start, do you think, like with revivals? I mean, you were saying some of them were like, no, it was more imperial, Constantine. But the ones that we see more in Europe, were some of them coming out of, because here's why I asked, because you could make the connection like, oh, well, like your building is just going to be an empty tomb someday for a church that, like, doesn't just every church become that?
Well, our building could become a whatever down the road, for sure. No doubt. But no, most of Notre Dame, once Notre Dame, so a very different era, right? We're going hundreds of years past what I was describing in Turkey there. But even when it was finished and ready for worship. All the paupers that built that thing were not allowed to come in and worship. So people kept asking, well, when did the Greek church or when did the Eastern church, really begin to fall? When did the Roman church really begin to, when did I don't know, all the way to the beginning of the Anglican church. You know why the Anglican church started? Because Henry VIII was siring children all over the place, but wanted a legit heir. Couldn't get it because the church, wouldn't let him to get a divorce. And so he went through he had to become the head of his own church in order to divorce and behead his wives to finally get an heir or whatever. Like from its inception, from its beginning, it was bad. And so are there true churches that fall? Of course.
Right.
But I'm just saying when you're talking about these massive kind of magnificent artifacts of often from the beginning, like the Eastern Church, Constantine, no, it was started bad.
Yeah.
But the true church continued.
And it's sustained by taxes, isn't it? Like in a lot, started and funded.
Yeah. I can't speak about Spain very
churches,
well.
No.
Again, not that true gospel witness wasn't going on, but I mean, again, back in the time when Henry VIII was taking the heads off his wives, Tyndale was out there trying to get the Bible in English so people could learn, and they're trying to kill him. There's always that remnant of true, genuine Christ followers. Luther was alive in that same time, trying to free the church free God's people from a tyrannical church. So I'm just saying, I'm not cynical about the true gospel work that was going on, but most of these massive church buildings and movements were vandalized from the start. They didn't have a beautiful gospel-centeredness and fell from grace. They started that way.
Wow.
That's my opinion. We might get words on that too. I don't know.
Please email your opinions on Notre Dame. Actually, we don't have an email address, so we're gonna
hold those thoughts.
I was supposed to do that after last episode.
Notre Dame, great football, good movie,
great movie.
Rudy, Hunchback of Notre Dame. I saw that.
Hunchback.
I'll say this one cool thing. I mean, I think we'd agree Notre Dame is a beautiful building, and the stained glass windows. I mean, there's this. Phenomenal. The story of the gospel is everywhere, and it was cool being there, even though it's not really an active place of worship. But you see these tour guides all around, and people from all over the world, and the tour guides are like, "Oh yeah, this is Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ being nailed to a cross to die for the sins of the world." Like, these people probably aren't even the tour guides. You're like, oh, they're hearing the gospel story through these.
That's true.
Magnificent works. They're like, so even like, who knows what motives were behind their building, but like even now, like people are
kind of hearing the
almost
gospel
in spite of.
One of the cool things about those
very
kind of cathedrals, though, is many of the people that worked on building those never saw their completion. Like it took so long to construct that there is something like this is beyond me or my lifetime or just for me, that this is an investment into the church, now corrupt as it was in there. But
I mean, St. Peter's,
so
the Vatican, so all of it, I just got to say, like, a lot of blood was spilled building those things. A lot of money was spent. A lot of people bought relics and indulgences thinking they'd get their dear one out of purgatory to build St. Peter's. A false teaching was at the bedrock of this edifice. You know what I mean? It's like,
one of my takeaways and summaries of this, I'm trying to process, like, as we talk about this, the stark contrast of a holy moment on an airplane with a lost person, contrasted with the barrier to this woman coming to Christ. One of the obstacles was the church. And so when you think about that, that's a contrast to me of like, there is a way to do the Lord's work in man's way
Yes.
that will just destroy the church.
Yep.
And then there's, the Lord's work in the Lord's way and in the Spirit, in the way of the Spirit, not the flesh.
Yep.
How would you practically what that looks like, to trust in the way of the Spirit versus the flesh? I'm just thinking of the simple gospel proclamation of just sharing the good news, like that there's so much like spiritual authority in saying to someone, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through him. It's confrontational, but it has spiritual power in the message, power to save. The gospel is the power of God, to save. I don't know. I'm just thinking about this conversation and how, if you try to do it in your way and it will destroy. Thinking about that.
Well, and that's, I think that's our hope, is that when we're dead and gone, it's not going to be the building that we, had a big building campaign and we got more seats and we got more people in. None of us are actually thinking about that. We're thinking, is the gospel going to continue?
Yeah.
Are more, passengers on airplanes going to share the gospel with the people next to them? Are more people to go to the gym and the school board and the whatever, in your neighborhood? Is the gospel going to keep being propagated? Well, that depends on those of us who are shepherds feeding God's sheep with truth and grace, so that that's what's, coming out of them, because that's what's in their hearts and souls. So that's whether we have to meet outside again, like we did just a few years ago, or in this new building that we built, that's inconsequential. You know what I mean? And let's keep that, that ordering.
Well, you can even do this. I was thinking about what God is doing in our church with the nations, with missions, and Shane Kelly. Oh my goodness, that guy he was on the trip. What a treasure. What a prince. I mean, he's just behind the scenes serving, he doesn't feel the need to be, to matter. He just is behind serving everyone, got one AirPod in, just on the phone with American Airlines for hours, rearranging flights and not, or he's, just kind of guiding us and one step ahead of everyone, thinking through everything. But anyway, it was in Austin. I mean, what treasures we have. But one of the things Shane said was, a missions guy was like, man, you guys have all these people. There's going to be like, I don't know what the number, like 15 to 20 people that are like being sent right now through Veritas. And it's so cool to see that. I was like, whoa, I didn't even realize that. But this other person was commenting like, wow, that's like, what are you guys doing? That's crazy. And I was like, Shane, what are we doing?
That's what I was just going to ask. What are we doing? Somebody.
But what we're doing is just like, you're doing church, you're trying to just, we're not doing anything that, I don't know, like there's a lot of people doing what we're doing, but God is blessing it. But I do think that one of the ways that what I said to Shane was, I've talked to Drew about this a lot, and we've probably talked about this on the podcast, but it's the whole thing, like, if you want to kill a culture of missions, try to create a culture of missions. If you want to kill a culture of discipleship, try to create a culture of discipleship. Like, basically, here's our missions packet.
Put it in a bottle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's our missions packet. And Shane, his story, let me bottle it up, let me package it, and let me tell you, it's more top down. Like, we got together and we decreed, this is our new heart for the nations. It's like, no, that's not how it happens. And Shane laughed. He goes, oh, it's like I think he was with you. You guys were at a seminary that will go unnamed. And I don't know. He's like, yeah, we came up, we were going on a tour, and they're like, oh yeah, and this is the. He saw a room. It said like missions room, you know, and he's like, sweet. I love missions. Can't wait to see. So he opened it, and all these like missions pamphlets like fell out of it was a closet.
It was a storage closet of pamphlets.
Did you know what he's talking about?
Yeah. You're thinking, am I going to open this door to a war room, you know, where all these people are sending people everywhere on the phone and finding their,
yeah.
It's like
pamphlets fall out.
The closet.
But you could do that too with all things. Like we're gonna write the pamphlet on this, and this is how to do this, and we're gonna push everyone through this, thing, and you try to kind of force it. But I just see it as a byproduct of worship. I see it as a byproduct of like aim at Jesus, get missions thrown in. Aim at Jesus, get discipleship thrown in. Aim at Jesus, get friendship thrown in. I kind of see it. I don't know. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm processing. Like, where's the role for strategy and plan without forcing a culture? Because oftentimes, like, it's so narrow. Like, it's got to happen this way. But the most fruitful. Like, recently, I've just been wrestling with Acts 2 and you see the early church boom. It says that day by day the Lord was adding to their number. Nowhere does it talk about their devotion to evangelism. They were devoted to the apostles' teaching. They were devoted to the prayers. They were devoted to the fellowship. It doesn't even say they were devoted to community. Community happened. They were meeting in each other's homes, but it wasn't something they were devoted to. Like, their devotion to the apostles' teaching, to prayer, to the gather, the fellowship. And then what was God doing through that? He was deepening their community. He was growing their, and sometimes where it's like, no, here's our strategy. And we forget to be, like you said, it's going to flow out of worship. Like, they were devoted to God, his mission, and then evangelism or missions kind of flow out of that. And I think sometimes we can put the cart before the horse of like, okay, what is our mission strategy? Let's be devoted to this, and maybe at the expense of the basics.
But I think you're onto something there. I was having the same thoughts, as you were talking there, Mark, because on the other hand, it's good. I mean, there's a dude that came to Christ. It's now at my men's table, and I've gotten to know him. And because of his addictions, he wants to stay free of addictions. Well, there are Christians like up at Veritas Cedar Rapids who have thought, how do we help people with some materials? Because we've got some history now with doing this and how the Bible intersects addiction and to help people walk in freedom. So, but then what we need to do is hold the tool loosely. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like at some point, does this become obsolete and we need to breathe some fresh air into this or whatever? You know what I mean? Where instead what we can do is grab this tool, and now the tool becomes an end in and of itself, and we're trying to protect the tool rather than it was a means of discipleship. It was a means of
right, well, like that image of a trellis. Like, all right, this is something can grow, a vine can grow on. But a lot of the language of pipeline, like a pipe is really narrow.
Right,
like it's got to go through here, and this step happens before this step, and then this step, and it can look awesome on paper, but then just in real life,
restrictive.
Does everything does this always come before that?
Right.
And it could be unrealistic.
It's I mean, there's, I don't know what flows through pipes, I think
fresh water, Mark.
Fresh water flows through pipes. I don't know. I like the trellis. I think it's obviously an overstatement. To say, that because it doesn't mean don't write about it. Don't try to be strategic or don't be helpful. And I'm just saying in general, Acts 13 is how the mission,
but
the prayer.
I think you guys particularly should step back and think through that because I would say maybe a stereotype, perhaps unfair, perhaps an aspect of it true of Veritas Iowa City is like, oh, super, ready, shoot, aim, not organized. But yet the ministry that you guys consistently do of, missions and church planning that seems to be flowing out of there to step back. Okay, where is this coming from? Why do we have so many people that want to go? Why do new ministries come out of it? We came out of it. Like you planted us, but you've never had this approach of here's our step 1, step 2, step 3, but yet you've been fruitful. So what's behind that?
But that's the secret sauce is we don't know.
It's even a secret from you.
That's so secret. We don't even let ourselves know. We've kept it a secret. Somehow you can do that.
Which there may be something to that because as soon as you oh yeah, let me tell you how.
Yes.
You kind of lose this posture of, okay, God, whatever.
Yeah.
Because I think looking from the outside, some of it is your willingness to not fit into a pipe, but it seems like God's opening a door. Let's lean into that. It seems like the Spirit's doing something. Let's lean into that. And even when it's outside of maybe what you thought might happen,
right?
Oh, we got 70 people driving down from Cedar Rapids. Let's lean into that. Or we have a guy on our staff who's really passionate about Asian students and he's wanting to go let's lean into that. So I think that posture has been, I don't want to tell you what the secret is of your secret sauce, but I think that's an ingredient in it for sure.
Well, I mean, the day, we're on the road going around telling people how to do this, I don't know. But we should probably shut down our Average Pastor podcast.
Well, right. But I think there is a sense of maybe this is for above average pastors where it's like we're visionaries and we know what the next 5 years are going to look like. And here's our plan. And in the name of staying focused, there's things that come up and we're like, we don't do that. And it's like, well, what if God's calling you to what if he has a different 5-year plan than your 5-year plan? And
right.
I had this conversation with a friend. He's like, why are you so focused on national church planning? That's good. But look at your state. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's huge need in these communities, rural communities all over our state. Places like, how many, kind of county seat places and who wants to go to, well, you live there for 7 years or however long, just in one of those places. And there's a need there. And so with, and even just think about San Sebastian. How did that happen? Was that a dot on our map? No. I mean, I'm wondering even when I get on the plane, why are we going here again?
And where is it?
Where is this? And I don't just packed my bags and had to do a place I'd never. How did that happen? Real quick, how did that happen? Hold your thought. But how did it happen? I mean, we're sitting at Bread Garden downtown Iowa City, and Austin and Ellie are sitting across saying, we feel like God's calling us, and here's why. Because both of us came to know Jesus here at Iowa. And it's because you guys moved here to plant the church in Iowa City that we were able to hear the gospel. So doesn't it logically follow we want to go over there and share the gospel? Ellie had done a study abroad there and was impacted.
But you could say what they're not asking is you planted at the University of Iowa. That's how we came to know Christ. We want to go plant at another university city. They're saying, or nationally, it's overseas.
Overseas.
So I think the unique thing that you guys have always shown an openness to is what is the Spirit of God doing in somebody else that I want to have ears for, that may not have registered in my plan or direction I wanted to go, but it seems like, oh, God's stirring your heart for that.
Doesn't fit in our strategy, but that John 3 thing where the wind of the Spirit is blowing, where we can't control the wind. All we can do is detect where that wind happens to be shifting and moving, and it's our job to hoist our sail
that's it.
into that wind.
That's it. That's as much control as we have is the sail. And I don't know, maybe you could say, well, yeah, there's ways you can adjust the sail to kind of go in a direction, but the wind of, I think, Jake, you're right on, because if that exists in a Excel document somewhere on a, mission pastor's, Excel doc or whatever, who cares? What you need is it's the work of God in a person. I think you were one of the first people that really, in the early days of us planting, when you came, I feel like you really pushed that, just that, well, the person determines the place, right? Like, what is God doing in that person? It seems like something that I've
Is that a good idea?
It's a great idea.
Yeah, I was the first one.
Okay, I'm going to put Jake on the spot and probably James on the spot. I think we should put a link to your daughter's recent her reflection on Jordan.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think she names him.
No, she doesn't.
I just did. Anyway,
that's all right.
This very thing. Have you read her? Her.
Yeah.
Can we put a link to that? Like, it's just a writing. It's just
I can put it in the show notes.
In the show notes or whatever. We are getting to be a big deal.
I
We
know.
got show notes. Holy cow, we got show notes with links. With links. But I'm just saying, I think Johnny did a great job of both affirming, man, I'm glad to be part of an organization that thinks big and has strategies to go to places, and also that there are those that rise up that are willing to take a different route in a different place. And I just loved the spirit of that. And
a pastor's heart to look for a sheep without a shepherd and lean into that. And I don't want to, on either ditch, to make sound like going to a university town or a big city is better than going to a small town, or going to a small town is better than, like, it's not.
Well, she affirms all the above.
Yeah.
She's even going on a summer team. A very planned summer. So
I think we just need to be careful in leaning too much into strategy of
100%.
Where, because it makes sense to say, like, okay, you want to reach the next generation and change the culture. University centers, that's where students are coming to, the world is coming to. Or if you want to do it, you need to go to city centers, because that makes sense. I get it, and I'm all for that. We should do that. But if you take that too far, Jesus had a terrible strategy because he spent most of his time in rural villages interacting on the outskirts. So we need to be a little bit careful of thinking like we have the strategy to reach the world through these things. It's like lean into what we're called to, and the guy going to a rural town in Illinois versus New York City. Praise God for both of those people.
Well, not only did Jesus really get it wrong, but so did all the apostles. Because as you go through, I mean, Philippi became as much of a focus for Paul as did Corinth and Athens. And it was a small town then. It was, I'm just saying they picked up the right vibe from Jesus, that we're going wherever, Holy Spirit, you lead us to go, and we're going to take the gospel wherever that is. Keep strategy in mind, but not be bound to that. And now, again, here we are in Iowa because Jesus got it right, the apostles got it right, and it wasn't nearly as tight on strategy as maybe we make it today.
For sure.
Yeah, there's a lot there. That's a whole.
It's good we got to it at the end.
So isn't it? But the people,
Mark's like, who's saying it's the end?
My mind doesn't. My processing speed is not as sharp.
It's that jet lag kicking in.
The people are the strategy, though. I'm trying to summarize that And I'm still trying to figure out what the secret sauce is. So we need to work on that.
Who knows? You probably tell somebody you led to Christ on the way there. You forgot to tell us that one.
Don't worry about looking at the show notes for our strategy because there's no link for that yet. We're still trying to find it
out. Yeah. So anyway, well, we'll let you know we figure that out. So, let's wrap it up. Any closing thoughts or,
Good to have you back.
Yeah.
It's good to be back. Yeah. It's good to be back. Look forward to our next conversation. That'll be fun. So, Jeff, you want to close us out?
How about just pray? How about that?
Let's do it.
I love it. Yeah, because God, we're saying all this, and we want you to know, Lord, that we mean it. We want to be in tune and in step with your Spirit. We want to be following you in a very supernatural, mystical way, Lord, that you are guiding and leading and empowering, sometimes redirecting. Lord, we want to say our hands, just like that lady in the row of Mark's airplane. We want to hold our hands out, Lord, and say, fill our cup and lead on, O King Eternal. And even if that means we're going to take a hard right where we thought it was going to be a hard left, whatever that is, Lord, we are yours and your ways are best, and we trust you deeply. So lead on, and we're there to follow. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Thanks for joining us. I hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time.